Hi YouTube, I'm Alexander. Thank you for tuning in for another sim racing video with me. Today we're doing something a bit different. It's going to be software rather than hardware because I want to show you what I got involved with and what really taught me what sim racing was. Now, first of all, before we get into that, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's watched the previous video and done the like, subscribe, commenting thing. You can find a little link down below where you can do the same. It helps me out, it's free, and it does so much for the channel. Now, if you're wanting something a bit more live, you want to join me in chat, tell me how much of an idiot I am on track because I'm not the best, then I do stream every Saturday evening 7 until 9 UK time. You can find the link down in the description below. But right now we're going to get into something called Live for Speed because this is where I started out. Now this is a fantastic little title. As you can see, we've got 30 odd AI drivers, all pro and quick, which are the fastest levels of these. And you'll see that we had some on different settings, because that you could do. You could have AI drivers all set at different levels. But what set this game apart from the likes of Gran Turismo and Need for Speed that were out at the time was that each of these drivers had their own individual file and they would evolve at their own pace. So what you're about to see is a lot of drivers doing their own thing. Everybody's doing something different. Like you just saw a little bit of a love tap there. There's people getting it very wrong on the straight because each driver is learning as they drive, getting things wrong, getting things right, learning how to go faster, not afraid to make a little bit of contact if they feel they need to. And we're just going to be careful here because people are getting it wrong behind and still getting it wrong. And we don't want too much damage because yes, unlike the games of the early 2000s, this one did incorporate a damage model. You didn't see too much damage. I mean, you got a bit of deformation on the panel work, but the suspension really did get damaged. There we go, we've just seen yellow flag on the screen there because again, you had a flag system and you had pit stops, you had fuel usage, and you had a very unique tyre model for the time, which I can show you, because if you look down at the bottom of the screen you'll see some blue blobs. Now these are indeed the representation of what is happening with the tyre in the simulation model. So you can see a number of zones around the outside where we've got tyre wall, we've got an inner, middle and outer patch of tyre surface, and inside that we've got essentially what is happening inside the tyre. So we can learn what temperatures the tyres are, what they're doing. As I'm getting it very wrong here, I'm going to have to escape over the gravel and just hope that doesn't do too much. And now you can see that there's dirt on the tyres. That little orange bar is an indicator that the tyres are dirty. Now these do lock up, they do flat spot, they do overheat, and they do wear out. And as far as I can remember, I hadn't ever seen that before on any title prior to the 2010s. So to have it in 2002 and there was a car upside down in the gravel there, it was absolutely epic to have that way back when. And this is why I started doing online races with other people all around the world, because you could compete and you didn't need to pay a lot of money to do it, and it was like real competition. You had tyres, you had damage, you had wheel-to-wheel racing. And one of the other things that you may have noticed if you haven't already is that each of the cars had its own livery, its own skin. So you could dress the car up to look however you wanted it to. And even today people still release liveries from modern titles that you can go and download and race in. A lot of cars off circuit there as well. I feel like there's a lot of DNFs already. But again, that's all just down to the individuality of these drivers. As we're trying to go as fast as we can to try and catch up to everybody else. And that may be easier said than done, because as I did mention, these guys do evolve as they race around, so they will get faster and faster. And again, while I'm talking to you, I'm not exactly giving it 200% focus. But let's have a look, because one of the other things that was apparent in the early 2000s was the suspension model. Now I can see that on the left hand side, the upper, lower and toe arms all seem to have a little bit of damage. So that does mean that I will not be going flat out with that damage, as we just see another incident evolving on the circuit. Just absolutely phenomenal racing from the AI, how a group of, well, 3 people in the early 2000s decide that the artificial intelligence can evolve, can learn circuits where to go faster, can be aggressive if they feel like it. And that's the key, it's if they feel like it. You didn't have that anywhere else, and in many cases I don't think you do anywhere else still today, 20 years later. One thing that you definitely don't have, as we see another car going off circuit, one thing that you don't have, oh, car 26 made a pit stop, which you got. 2002, you got pit stops. I can't remember, I don't think you got any sort of animation to say there was a pit stop, but your car did the whole stop in the pits, lift itself up. Just how it does in a set of course, or a game that's a good 10, 12 years newer. But even today, I mean, it's been 20 years since this game came out, and I've got to say that the tyres feel better than a lot of titles that you can still go and race on today. I mean, you can still go and race on this, absolutely, but there's no championship that uses this at the moment, and it's a shame because these tyres feel absolutely amazing. Better than what I'm normally streaming on a Saturday night, I will tell you that for sure. I'm not even sure that a set of Corsa Competizione only feels this good with the steering, the tyre model, and how the car reacts. I will tell you that it is lacking in terms of weight transfer. We don't have the full feeling of the weight of the car. I don't know whether I'm under or overloading the front end, which does make setup a little trickier when you're dealing with the geometry at the front end and you're trying to dial a car in for the perfect lap, as we see somebody else still going around in circles there. And again, they weren't perfect AI. They had to learn. And I'm just a bit ginger there, I didn't want to make contact. Still don't, but I've got a feeling this guy's going to be early on the brakes, meaning I can go down the inside here, and he's not yielding, he's not giving it up, making me work for it. And again, the sounds. Granted, it's not high resolution audio, granted there is no reverberation from inside the car like there is on a set of Corsa Competizione, for example. But I don't think we're going to get another title that sounds that good for at least a couple of years. But the sounds are spot on. It does miss the curbs, granted. It does miss a lot of the things that more expensive titles do include, but you have to remember that this game, it costs like £10 for the S2 license. Of course, you could download the demo and play it indefinitely, online and offline. You get one circuit in a handful of cars. And now we've got S2 and S3, which you can purchase, and to be honest, for the cost, the value is absolutely incredible. And again, you have mirrors where you can see what's happening behind you. They're not just blacked out for the cockpit view like they are on a lot of other titles. The gauges in the car, they work. We can turn on and off indicators, for instance, if I can remember how to turn them off. There we go, eventually. You've got a pit speed indicator as well. As I'm missing my braking point by miles. I'm still in 4th, still got another 3 cars I'm chasing. I can just about see them in the distance. 6 laps out of 10. Again, this is 20 years old. It does not look it. Yeah, granted, the interior's a bit potato-ish. The grass on the side of the circuit is lacking a lot of detail. The grandstands don't look real. But just look at the tarmac. Look at the white lines, the curbs. Yeah, it's dated, but it's not terrible. You turn the texture settings down on some of the modern titles that are out there today, and this is what it looks like, if not worse. But those model titles do not feel like this does. Shall we see if we can go for a lap? And again, this is working with a load cell brake pedal. The Thrustmaster T300, which wasn't around back then. You had a choice of a Logitech G25 or a Thrustmaster RGT force feedback. Direct Drive didn't exist. Fanatec did not exist as a company. When this thing came out. I can feel the tyres tugging the car around all the way through that corner. Again, you have to learn how to set the car up with this title. How to deal with locks, brakes, oversteer, understeer. Pit stops if you were doing races that involved them. How to deal with other human beings on the same circuit. And if you hadn't raced in real life, it was completely novel because there wasn't much else out there. It's completely changed what sim racing was. And at the time, a lot of people would say that Formula 1 teams would use this, and I don't think that's right. Not by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that they may have taken things that this team were doing and implemented them into their software for sure. Very damaged car that I'm making my way past here, so that's definitely a lapped car. I do feel like I'm getting closer to the top 3, but I don't know if I've got enough time to do anything about it. Again, you have a very predictable tyre model in this. Way before people were drifting on a set of course, they were drifting on Live for Speed. I still couldn't drift back then. We're chasing down. We have 3rd place in front of us. I think I may be able to do something about 3rd place. But it would be absolutely amazing to see a modern championship in 2022 look at Live for Speed for their next title, because this is absolutely flawless. Everything's predictable. The contact between cars has sent nobody a million miles away at light speed. It just works. And it has done for 20 years. And I think it leads the way. I'm just going to put it out there. Still today, 20 years later, this game, this simulation title, certainly leads the way in terms of tyre model. Leads the way in terms of netcode. And if you're an iRacing fan, you will certainly know all about netcode. Right, so we're going to do this around the fast bit, and then maybe a chance for 2nd. Oh, I thought he was going to fight a bit longer. He's chosen not to. And again, one of the things that this game lost a lot of its early following us for was the fact that you couldn't race anything you wanted to. It had to be one of the vehicles that was part of the game at release, or one of the vehicles that they added in a future update. Now, however, they've opened the software to allow modifications to the code, so you can add tracks, you can add cars. Very welcome addition. Sadly, it hasn't revived the game just yet, but with how this feels and how the netcode operates, again, you haven't seen that today, but that might be a video for somebody else. But how this game works, I would be very surprised if we don't see a resurgence in popularity. Oh, I think I messed up that exit. Don't think I'm going to get 2nd. Definitely not going to get 1st. But as you can see, skill levels apart. The 30 drivers that we started with on the grid are not following each other in the same train. And you can hear the diff kicking in just there. That was a very brave overtake that I've made stick somehow. Somehow I've made that work. And I think I just scored 2nd place. There we go. So that's 10 laps in a GTR car on Live for Speed. And I have to be honest, I could do that again. Not for too long, because that will wear you out. The force feedback is a lot stronger. than on many other titles out there. We see one of the artificial intelligence drivers has a fastest lap, and all of the best laps wildly different. Not just because they're in different cars, but because they're all evolving at a different rate. And again, I think the closest competitor to this game in terms of simulation quality would have been Richard Burns' Rally. Because there is nothing else all the way up through until you've got the current installation of iRacing and a set of Corsa Competizione that people use for competition, to use real circuits, to use real cars. But even then, granted, they are very much more polished nowadays, but I do not believe that the level of simulation detail is on par with this. They look better, they feel like they're very well polished, they sound much better, but they are not. They are not live for speed. So there you go, there's a pit stop. Damage to left rear. Car doesn't lift up, nothing fancy happens, there's no simulation. But do you need it when the racing quality is this good? Now, one of the things that I might take you to see before we go and wrap up this video is what the multiplayer looks like at the moment. We have a list of hosts, and you can see that there's a few servers out there that have people on them right now. We have a few new servers for S3, which I don't have at the moment. That has only in the last few years been released. However, we would like a race on something, so why not take the BMW and go out for some racing. Now let's load in to beginner BMW. We have mid-race joins allowed, so we can get straight in if we need to. And you can see that it's downloaded all of the liveries instantly. Not high resolution, but liveries nonetheless. So let's grab the BMW. We'll get into livery. Let's just go red. Let's just go red. Let's join. And again, you can see that people do type messages. There is a chat client. And again, the sounds are not perfect, but this is a Formula BMW real car that BMW worked on with LFS for a competition they were running. As you see, a lot of people going around in circles back then. Now, I don't think I'm going to have the pace to catch up to these guys ahead, but there will be certainly some of the people behind coming past. And again, you can see on your screen that people just voting to boot someone out of the server. And that was something that was around in 2002 to stop people taking the mickey. Like, if you were on a public server and someone was actually causing a lot of incidents, you could boot them out of the server, tell them to go do some private practice, and that would keep the servers cleaner. Mean that fewer people would take the mick and sit there destroying everybody's races. It didn't become Monza on a set of Corsa Competizione. And if you've raced Monza on Competizione, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then this had an implementation of safety rating. It didn't happen straight away at release. It was an add-on that was added to the servers way back when. but it would tell you what people's history was on that server, tell you how safe they were as a driver, how fast they were as a driver. And this was way before anything existed like that on Assetto Corsa, or Competizione existed. Again, very much pioneers, way ahead of their time. As we're finding some pace, but I don't think it's going to be enough to catch anybody. Although it does say I'm in second because I'm just taking too much grass. Certainly a track limits moment. And again, when it came to track limits, if you did go off, it was slippy. It is still slippy if you go off track. But this is online. There is no mention of netcode. As we can see, first place ahead in the distance. We've got one lap. I don't think we're going to catch them in one lap. But one thing that modern titles could take something from is the frequency of racing in Live for Speed. Now, like the servers on Assetto Corsa, the original Assetto Corsa, this will go from race into race into race. There's no practice in between, there's no qualifying in between. You just get given a grid place and that's it. Now, unlike Assetto Corsa, it doesn't start you where you finished. It's a bit more random, and that adds a lot to the game as well, because it's not the same person winning every single race. And you don't have to learn how to get good with the people who maybe take different lines before you can start racing up there with the best and learning from their lines. You can just start learning. Figure out who's quick, figure out where they're starting around you, see how long you can hang on for. And that's how I learned to get quick in the GTRs. It's how I learned to get quick in all of the other cars that Live for Speed offered. And that carried through into Assetto Corsa when I joined that. That was a good few years after I'd been doing a lot of championship stuff with R-Factor, which, you know, was a very good title for its game, but it took what this game didn't have. R-Factor had community mods to download and use, and once that moved over to Assetto Corsa, that essentially killed R-Factor, but it wasn't a loss. I'm going to say that the day that Live for Speed is finished, that is going to be a loss. That is going to be a shame. And that is first place, just getting it wrong on the exit. So in 4 laps we've gone from the back to the start. And there we go, around the final couple of corners now. And I think that if not for a lot of drama, that one could have been a very interesting race with a lot of other people. Well, let's go into spectate so you can see the kind of graphics that were around from 2002. And you can see even now there's still little bits of grass there. It still doesn't look like it's just coloured in on a piece of paper. You can save replays. You can adjust the graphics, adjust the view. Fantastic car. Fantastic game. And I think if we can get a restart going. Let's see if we can join into the pits. See if we can get this restart going, and then maybe go toe to toe with some other people. Now, it stuck me on pole for some reason. I'm not liking the way that is. I would rather go wheel to wheel with somebody. But again, there's no cheesy animation for the lights. The lights are there on the gantry. If you don't see them, it's your fault. You can jump the start. You don't have to, but you can. And that will result in a drive-through penalty, just as it should. as we see an incident on the first corner. And I'm going to slow down here. I'm going to let this guy overtake at some point. Because we're going to go do some racing, and you can see that we can just dive straight in behind. There's no worries about any netcode. A little bit sideways out there from Benet, I think. I'm not sure. But gamer tags were still very, very common in 2002. They still are for a lot of the championships out there, but the more grown-up racing leagues are moving towards using their real names now, which I think's a good thing. I'm in favour of that. Oh, this guy's leaving me a bit. I think I need to catch up. Benoit, I think it is, ahead of me. And we do have a few people further behind. Maybe I could have turned in earlier there. We definitely are getting caught from the 3 drivers behind. You can see them on the little mini-map to the top right. Oh, too fast, too brave. Lots of understeer. But I would really like to catch this guy, see if we can have a bit of a battle towards the end of this race. And again, nothing's catching me unawares. Everything is predictable. And there are some add-on games that use an engine developed by the R-Factor team that just don't feel like this. Like, if they have to use a game to base their GUI on and stamp their feel on another person's game, then why aren't they using this? Because this is absolutely how it should feel. And again, with 2 seconds to catch, I don't think I'm gonna... These guys behind me are very, very close though. You could see behind me that it was 143 and 147. And you can see them in the mirrors now, or I can at least, because I can see the mirrors and you guys can't. But I've got to be very careful with whether I defend or whether I let them through. There is going to be a battle either way. I think one of them's just gone off. I think the other guy's missing a front wing. And this is a lapped driver. Now I'm missing a front wing. So that was interesting. No, I don't think I'm going to catch the guys ahead. But there you go, that's Live for Speed. This is what it's all about. So I'm going to head to spectate from there and just see you guys out, because once again it's been an absolute pleasure to deliver another video for you. And again, just to remind you, if you are interested in subscribing down below, tell me what you thought about the content, tell me what you think about the game. Like I said, Live for Speed released 2002. Can you believe what this looks like today? Even better than that, download it, go have a go yourself, tell me what you think it feels like, because I think in terms of feel, in terms of racing quality, it is absolutely out of this world. So thank you so much for being a part of this. Remember, I do stream every Saturday night, 7 until 9 UK time, so once you've had your tea, get your family around the TV, get watching. It'll be better than anything else that's on, let's be honest. And we'll see you there. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.